It's very difficult. It's very difficult when you are looking at someone and they're different now.
It's difficult to watch her now, knowing how she was before.
It is a phenomenal task to take care of somebody with Alzheimer's, but there is such a thing as caregiver burnout.
When my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, I feared that our close relationship was doomed. Dad had committed no crime, but he was being sentenced to a life of progressive amnesia without possibility of parole.
I spoke about Alzheimer's to 300 inmates at a state prison in Ohio. What was the connection going to be for them? Well, they made the link between mental imprisonment of dementia and their own physical incarceration. It was fascinating. I was really pleased. In both situations, the only thing to do was to live with it, cope with it, deal with it, and if possible, make something good of it. The trouble for me was that after my father's diagnosis, I went through the Kubler-Ross 5 stages of grief. First denial, then anger.
So give us this day and our daily bread too, but don't make believe that the world's born anew every morning. It's not. We're just one whole day older. Wiser, we hope, and stronger and bolder. Than what, though? Than yesterday? That we can't answer, except to affirm that dementia is a cancer which kills off our knowledge of which is more rotten. A bad day remembered, or one that's forgotten.
The third stage of grief is supposedly the bargaining phase, but there was no bargaining with dementia. And so I plunged straight to grief's fourth stage of depression.
They say, death be not proud to the reaper when he takes a man or a woman deserving to be on this earth a while longer. Dementia, you too, be not proud of dementing the people you do. Be not proud any more of your amyloid plaques, your tangles that stop neurons dead in their tracks. Be not proud of dementing good folks like my father. Be shamed by your deeds.
Dementia wasn't going to be bargained with. Dementia wasn't going to be shamed. It was a losing battle. I was losing the father I so loved. He saw my despair, and with a simple gesture, he cured it. He glanced at a book of poetry in front of him, and he touched it.
You remember that poem, Jenny Kissed Me, I asked my father? Jenny kissed me when we met, he said immediately, jumping from the chair she sat in. Time, you thief who love to get sweets into your list, put that in. Dad could never recite that poem without his eyes moistening. Say I'm weary, say I'm sad, say that health and wealth have missed me. Say I'm growing old, but add, Jenny kissed me.
I was in tears. Dad snapped me out of it, pointing to a small tarnished Hohner mouth organ on the shelf across the room.
And so I handed my father his old harmonica, and he played. Oh, how he played! Note perfectly and with brio the old oaken bucket which he'd learned as a young boy. And I sang along. How dear to my heart are the scenes of my childhood, when fond recollection presents them to view. The orchard, the meadow, the deep tangled wildwood, and every loved spot which my infancy knew.
Dad had made us a bridge out of poetry and music, and we walked across it toward each other and met in the middle.
I was still angry at dementia, but I no longer felt in a death struggle with it. In fact, I was almost sorry for it. who cradles you, Dementia. No one. That's the trouble. And oh, how it hurts me to burst your pink bubble, but you are alone, and your heart is absconded, while we are united in love tightly bonded. When winds knock you down, we'll be standing up straight. Being filled up with love, we're the darlings of fate, whereas you're stuffed with pride, wheresoever pride goeth. Before a hard fall, as soon you will knoweth.
Viewed as a biological deterioration of the brain, Alzheimer's disease is terrifying, smelling of rot and decomposition. There's another way to see its biology, though, as fermentation, in which organic matter is not spoiled, but transformed, as are grapes into wine and milk into cheese. In his book entitled Cooked, Michael Pollan cites Samuel Taylor Coleridge's secondary imagination, which dissolves, diffuses, and dissipates in order to recreate. Pollan likens this breaking down of ordinary consciousness to the wine-making process, in which yeasts break down plant sugars to create something more potent and stimulating, and also to the wine-drinking process, which, in moderation, can produce a less literal and more metaphorical perspective. Poetry, for example, in place of prose.
In this very way, while my father had Alzheimer's, he and I moved from a prose relationship into one of poetry, which was no better or worse, just different, less literal, and more metaphorical, where we engaged more in rhyme than in reason, freezing time initially, but then melting it and coming together in that lyrical middle realm between what had gone before and what was yet to be. Dad had been sentenced to a life of dementia, but the key word was life, not sentence. Acknowledging this felt like grief's fifth stage of acceptance. For me, at least. And I think for him, as he lived his last days and died in a state of peace. I realize my poem's a bit overwrought. My metaphors strained and my similes not so convincing at times, and my making Dementia a person whom I then destroy in absentia is really a stretch, but I'm just so high-wired. No secret my poetic license expired last Tuesday, and I can't renew it until I'm able to pay up my poetry bill. But I can't pay my bill if I can't find my checkbook. Could I be demented? No matter. Oh, heck, look, I've spoken enough. Now I'll leave you to ponder that down's sometimes up and your becomes yonder. Don't fret past and future. Just throw that old clock out. When dementia fights love, love wins by a knock.